We've done extremely well on new business. Major wins in the United States, like Gillette, well, that's global, like Nestle, like Bacardi. I mean, a couple of other things that happened over the weekend that will be announced shortly. So we've done very well. But the underlying tone, corporates, as you know, are sitting on what, $2 trillion, $3 trillion of net cash. They've got very strong balance sheets, record results, not delivered by top line growth, which is where we come in, but delivered by bottom line growth driven by cost reduction. So the whole balance of finance and procurement as opposed to marketing changed after, I would argue, after Lehman in 2008. It's been that way for about 20 years as inflation at the retail level has not been significant.
Do you see any change as a result of the Eurozone crisis seeming to abate?
The difference between this year and last year is we don't have the events this year, and what's replaced it has been a little bit, why is it as good as it was last year or as bad as it was last year? It's because it commented a little bit better because China hard soft landing, US deficit and debt, all those fears have been reduced.
More recently,
yes,
Draghi has now come out and said, the ECB said last week, that they will keep interest rates low. For the
as did Carney on the same day. By accident,
exactly.
By accident, we are assured.
Do you believe that?
Well, it could be. I mean,
right.
It could be. But I think they have.
Did it make any difference to you as CEO?
Yeah, well, it did actually. It made me feel better about. I mean, because the suggestion of tapering, which was attributed to Bernanke a few weeks ago, made people nervous. I mean, it became nervous. You know, I sat down with the Goldman economist, the one who's replacing Jim O'Neill, Peter Oppenheimer, a few weeks ago, and he feels better about worldwide GDP next year. He feels 4% next year as opposed to, say, 3% real. With inflation this year, 2% makes a total of 5%. Next year, maybe ameliorated a bit, 1.5%. So 5% nominal plays 5.5% this year, next year. So what we see is probably a little bit more confidence.
Are you determined to annoy your shareholders again over your...
I have nothing to do with annoying the shareholders.
Over your remuneration?
No, look. I mean, be quite serious about it. We have a compensation committee of people who think seriously and long about the issues that face our industry, not just me, but face our people as well in terms of competitive compensation. So clearly, and this is not in my hands, Richard, this is in the hands of the, as I say, of the board and the compensation committee. Clearly, the consultation process that they went through has made progress. What this year has shown is that when the compensation committee and the board and the chairman of the compensation committee, Jeffrey Rosen, engaged with the institutions in a constructive dialogue, it did gain traction and gain ground.
Do you see investors in WPP as investing in a Sorrell enterprise in the same way?
It's not a Sorrell enterprise.
Let me finish.
1.5%, but you've got to call it Sorrell enterprise.
Let me finish. In the same way that people have often talked about, if you invested in the old News Corp, or as it's now been split, if you invested, you knew you were investing in Murdoch and the way Murdoch would run his companies. If you chose to invest in WPP, you'd be investing in a company that you knew Martin Sorrell was running.
Well, the analogy is a specious one. To some extent, I find it a flattering one. But it's a specious one because Rupert and his family own 40% of the votes of the company. I own 1.5% of the votes of the company. Happens to be one of the largest shareholdings in the company, but let's put that to one side. And as I wrote in the Financial Times, I am a shareholder, not the shareholder, and that's the important distinction. But I do happen to believe that individuals are important in business. I mean, you interview people who lead companies, or like me, attempt to lead companies. And I think business is determined to, whether we like it or not, to some extent, or maybe to a larger extent than people are willing to admit, by individuals and the decisions they make. And being a founder of WPP, my attitude is always going to be different to whoever else might succeed me running WPP or what. It'd be totally different. And probably whoever he or she is, they will do it better. But the point is that my attitude is different. It is highly personal, because we started the business from scratch 28 years ago with 2 people in one room. And what I wanted to do was not only start something, but run something. And I was always intrigued with issues of scale or challenges of scale. I didn't want, some people are good at starting things and not running them. Some people are good at running things but not starting them. I wanted to do both.